Please let me stay just for tonight. Mom says I'm not part of the family because of my developmental disability.
Unbelievable words from my granddaughter's mouth. It's her birthday today. She should be happily eating cake with her family, but instead, she's saying things like this. I hugged her tiny body tightly. My name is June. I'm 58. My husband, who is the same age, is a company employee nearing retirement, and I quit my job when I was 55, so now I'm a housewife. I spend my days making flower beds in the garden, reading my favorite comics from childhood, and watching movies. When I was young, I went through a lot, but looking back at this age, they're all good memories. I have one son who is married and lives in an apartment nearby with his wife and 2 daughters. My granddaughters are 8 and 6. Having only raised a son, having 2 girls around is a refreshing change. My daughter-in-law, Nancy, is a cheerful person, and I think we have a good relationship. Nancy often brings her 2 daughters to me since I retired.
Sorry, June. Today I have a lunch meeting with my friends. Can you watch the girls? My high school friend is visiting from out of town. I'm going shopping.
The reasons vary, but she often leaves her 2 daughters with me like this. I enjoy spending time with my grandkids, so I've never refused. Nancy is a housewife. My son is 35 and a manager at a relatively large company. His salary should be pretty good. Some of my old friends say, a housewife who leaves her kids with her mother-in-law and goes out often must be nice. I don't know if once every 10 days is a lot or not. That day, too, Nancy came over with her 2 daughters. The older granddaughter is Mary, and the younger one is Cindy. Cindy, who takes after her mother, is a bright child and always hugs my waist, saying, "Yay, Grandma," when she sees me. Mary, on the other hand, just gives a small nod without saying anything.
Honestly, this child has no manners.
Nancy always says this as she lightly taps her daughter's head. She does greet, so I don't think it's necessary to tap her.
Sorry, June. Today there's a concert by an artist I've loved for a long time. I might be back a bit late.
Nancy, dressed up more than usual, said, "Oh, that's why you're more stylish today. I understand. Have a good time." If I told my old friends that Nancy leaves her kids with her mother-in-law to go to a concert, they'd probably say, "Must be nice." All right, how about I make some pancakes for a snack?
Me want to help. I want whipped cream on mine.
The younger granddaughter is eager and cute. Ignoring her enthusiastic sister, Mary says,
Grandma, can I read comics?
"Of course. I'll call you when the pancakes are ready." Nancy says Mary is unsociable, but I don't mind her laid-back attitude. I'm more like her in that way. When I first retired and Nancy started leaving the girls with me, they often drew pictures together. Despite their 2-year age difference, Mary was surprisingly good at drawing. I've liked comics since I was young, so I have a decent eye for art. Even to me, her drawings were impressive. They weren't the typical doll-like pictures girls often draw. She drew realistic, 3-dimensional characters. Wow, Mary, you're so good at drawing. I praised her without hesitation.
But Daddy and Mommy said Mary's drawings aren't cute.
Her younger sister, who had just turned 5, pouted and said, I might have praised Mary too much, making Cindy jealous. Cindy's drawing was a cute doll with eyes so big they almost popped off the face. It's a pity Mary's parents don't appreciate her talent. Mary, you're really good. Grandma is so impressed. Your dad has never been good at drawing or crafts since he was a kid. He just can't see how amazing your art is. When I said that, Mary smiled shyly. She usually doesn't show much emotion, which made her even more endearing. Her drawings are impressive for her age, maybe too impressive to seem cute, but I wondered why they didn't praise her properly. Eventually, Cindy got tired and fell asleep. I asked Mary, what should we do? Want to read a comic book?
I haven't read many comics.
Mary replied, I've loved comics since I was a child and have a lot of them at home. But my son never showed much interest in comics, and I never heard Nancy say she liked them either. So they probably didn't buy comics for the kids. I took Mary to the room with the bookshelves. You can read whatever you like. I'll make lunch in the meantime. While I made spaghetti for lunch, Mary stayed quietly in the room. Lunch is ready. No response. When I went to get her, she was engrossed in a comic book. She talked about the comic all through lunch. Usually, she doesn't say much, so I was a bit surprised, and even Cindy was amazed at Mary's unusual behavior.
Mary is talking a lot. That's weird.
I don't like books with just words, but comics are really fun and interesting.
I was happy to hear that, as a fellow comic lover. Mary continued reading comics all the way until dinner. Since that day, whenever Mary comes over, she heads straight to the room with the bookshelves and reads comics by herself. I was delighted that my granddaughter took an interest in comics. However, Cindy said something surprising.
Mary only reads comics. It's boring. She even got scolded by Mom for buying one with her allowance the other day.
It's fine to buy a comic with her allowance. I remember how it feels to have your favorite things denied by your parents. I'm definitely on Mary's side. One day, Nancy asked me to make my special dish for Cindy's birthday party. I searched on my phone for a cute stationery set to wrap as a present, made the dish, and went to my son's house. I placed the shiny stationery set on the table, and the birthday girl Cindy was delighted and said childishly to her sister,
Isn't it nice? This is mine, so you can't use it, Mary.
I regretted not buying something for Mary too. Mary, you can look forward to your birthday present. I said it to make Mary feel better.
I don't think we'll have a party for Mary.
I was surprised by Nancy's cold tone.
She doesn't like parties. She's quiet even today, right?
Sure, she's a quiet kid, but what child wouldn't like a party celebrating them?
She doesn't even get excited about presents, and it's just not rewarding.
That's not something you should say. Some kids just have a hard time expressing their feelings. I sympathize with Mary because I was often misunderstood for being bad at expressing emotions. Then my son said,
But Mary has no charm or personality. It's worrying for a girl.
He might not mean any harm, but these kinds of comments from adults can really hurt kids. When I glanced at Mary, she was expressionless, picking at her French fries, seemingly unaffected. About a month later, on the morning of the summer break, Nancy came over with Mary.
June, I'm sorry, but can you take care of Mary for a couple of days?
Oh, that's quite sudden. What's going on?
We're going to visit my parents, but if Mary comes along, my mom will have a lot to say.
Say what?
Didn't you hear what my husband said? That she's not sociable or charming, and then she blames my parenting for it.
That's terrible. I didn't think Mary would want to go there either. So I agreed to take her in. All right. You can tell your mom that her grandparents insisted on taking her on a trip. Even with this unpleasant conversation happening in front of her, Mary remained expressionless, her face revealing nothing.
Grandma, are we going on a trip?
After her mom left, Mary asked. Oh, no, that was just a lie. Sorry. Do you want to go on a trip?
No, I don't. I'd rather read comics at your house.
Does your mom dislike comics? I remembered what Cindy had mentioned earlier.
I don't know. But she said reading comics makes you stupid.
Sure, people used to say things like that in the past, but I'm surprised that some people still say that today. And to think it's my daughter-in-law saying that. Anyway, Mary and I had a fun 2 days together. Mary was engrossed in comics most of the time, and I enjoyed listening to her thoughts on them. Some comics were a bit mature for a girl her age, but I didn't reprimand her. I hated being told off for similar things as a child. Mary even talked about comics during dinner, sometimes forgetting to eat. My husband, slightly tanned from golf, laughed and said,
She's a lot like you, usually quiet, but when it comes to her favorite things, she doesn't care if anyone is listening or not.
Well, she is my granddaughter, so it's no surprise if we're alike. When Nancy came to pick her up, Mary looked like she didn't want to leave. I felt both happy and sad about that. Come back and visit any time. When I said that, she smiled and nodded big.
Well, what's with you? You're so friendly with Grandma.
Nancy says what she thinks right away, but I wish she wouldn't say it like that. As soon as she said that, Mary's face went back to being expressionless. Even though Nancy said they wouldn't have a party for Mary's birthday, I still wanted to give her a present. So I went to the store near the station and bought a sketchbook and a set of 120 colored pencils and had them wrapped. I also bought a character-themed notebook and colored pencils for Cindy. It was a weekday, and my grandkids probably weren't back from school yet, so I thought I'd go home and make some treats. As I got off the bus and walked towards home, I saw a small figure in my yard. Sometimes neighborhood kids pick flowers from my garden. They say flower theft isn't a crime, but as the one who takes care of them, I can't ignore it. I hurried back, and there stood Mary, all alone. Mary, what are you doing here? Are you alone? I asked in surprise.
Please let me stay just for tonight.
She said in a small voice. It's okay for you to stay, but where's your mom? Did you come alone?
Mom says I'm not part of the family because of my developmental disability.
What? What do you mean? Developmental disability is a term I've been hearing a lot lately.
The doctor said I have a developmental disability, and Mom said we don't need a kid like that in the family.
Oh my, what a thing to say. Let's go inside first. I took her hand and led her inside. Honestly, I didn't know much about developmental disabilities. A disability means there must be something wrong, right? But she didn't seem like it at all. I looked it up on my phone and learned that developmental disabilities can include hyperactivity, autism, and learning disabilities. Hyperactive kids can't stay calm, lack attention and focus, and can't sit still. Autistic kids have trouble communicating, show little interest in people, lack facial expressions, and often play alone. Mary probably falls into this category. Learning disabilities mean they might struggle with reading despite having normal intelligence. It's caused by an imbalance in brain development. Reading about it, I realized there were always 2 or 3 kids like that in my class. Kids who couldn't sit still in class, who wouldn't talk to anyone even when spoken to. Nowadays, they'd probably be diagnosed with developmental disabilities. Even I wasn't good at communicating with people and liked playing alone. One of those quiet kids grew up to be a talkative, cheerful mother of 3 when I met her at a reunion. I wondered if these things weren't just personality traits, but it seems we still don't understand much about the brain, so I can't really say. Apparently, there's a gray zone where kids don't get diagnosed, but show tendencies, which seems really complex. The real issue is when parents can't accept the diagnosis. That's what's happening with Mary now. But even if she was diagnosed with a developmental disability, could she really say, "You're not part of the family," and kick her out? I took a cookie tin from the cupboard and poured a glass of milk. Grandma is going to make a quick phone call, okay? I moved to a room where Mary couldn't hear me.
Oh, so she went to your place. Of course she did. She has nowhere else to go.
Nancy answered the phone without any concern. What do you mean by this? She said you told her she's not part of the family because of her developmental disability. I was pretty angry.
I never said that. I just said I didn't want a child with a developmental disability in the family.
That's basically the same thing. Don't you think that would hurt her?
I said it as a joke, but she just said okay and left. She never gets jokes, can't read the room, and it's exhausting being around her.
That's probably a trait of her autism.
The teacher told us she wasn't doing well in class and was advised to get tested for a developmental disorder. I never expected it, but she was diagnosed with a developmental disability. And while I was upset, she came up to me and said, "It's my birthday today. I couldn't deal with it."
I could sympathize a bit, but if it's a brain function issue from birth, it's not her fault.
So you're saying it's my fault? My mom will blame me for having a child with a disability.
Nancy got more agitated by her own words and became unmanageable. I'll take care of Mary for now. I'll make sure she goes to school from here. So you take some time to calm down and rest. I hung up. I briefly explained the situation to my husband over the phone, getting his after-the-fact approval. Mary will stay with Grandma and Grandpa for a while. When I said that, Mary didn't show any sadness or anger. Her face was hard to read.
Is it because I'm crazy?
Her question startled me. No, Mary, you're not crazy. You're a lovely girl who loves comics and is great at drawing.
That's a lie, right? Mom always says I'm not cute. She says I'm stupid for believing everything I'm told. Am I not supposed to believe what people say? Why do they say things I shouldn't believe?
It's not a lie. She didn't cry, but I could see she was deeply hurt. I hugged her tightly.
Mom just needs Cindy. Dad might miss me a bit, but I like it here better. There are lots of comics.
I couldn't believe she felt this way. Then let's live together here. You can read as many comics as you want, but you have to go to school and study too, okay? I told her.
Really?
Mary smiled happily. My husband bought a cake on his way home from work for Mary's birthday. He was more knowledgeable about developmental disabilities than I was, having discussed the topic at work.
They say to match people to the right job, and if you understand their needs, they can perform amazingly well. It's not a disease, so it can't be cured, but with understanding and effort, their lives can improve significantly.
He explained. That night, my son came over with Mary's school supplies and textbooks. He had researched developmental disabilities and accepted his daughter's diagnosis. He believed it was best for her to stay with her grandmother for now.
I'm sorry, Mary. I'll come get you once things settle down.
He patted her head. But my son never came to get Mary. About 3 months after Mary started living with us, Nancy's affair was discovered. That day, Nancy had gone out, leaving Cindy at home alone. My son found Cindy choking on a candy when he got home early from work, as his meeting nearby had finished early. Thankfully, he called an ambulance, and Cindy was taken to the hospital and was okay, but Nancy couldn't be reached. I got a call too, and I rushed to the hospital with Mary. After ensuring Cindy was safe, Nancy showed up, looking pale.
Where were you, leaving Cindy alone?
Oh, I was having lunch with a friend.
She quickly made an excuse, but having lunch with a friend shouldn't take until evening. My son pressed further.
I just lost track of time.
If this was going to happen, I wish she'd brought Cindy to us. Maybe she felt awkward after the incident with Mary. Then Mary suddenly spoke up.
Mom, why do you smell different when you come back from outings compared to our shampoo and soap?
What?
No one understood at first.
What are you talking about? You never read the room.
Nancy was clearly shaken.
I went to a spa, that's why.
Then why not take Cindy with you?
It's not just today. It's always.
Mary's words made my son suspicious. He might have had his doubts already.
You're having an affair, aren't you?
What? That's ridiculous. Don't take Mary's words seriously.
I remembered reading about developmental disabilities. People with developmental disabilities can be sensitive to sounds and smells. They might react strongly to unfamiliar smells. When I said that, the atmosphere froze.
Not just Mary, but you too can't read the room. It's not my fault. He's always working and leaves everything about the house and kids to me. I'm stressed out, and now my child is labeled as having a developmental disability. Can't anyone think about me for a change?
Nancy lashed out. Even before we knew about Mary's diagnosis, you often left the kids with me to go out. I couldn't believe what my daughter-in-law was saying.
You were cheating on me while leaving our daughters with my mom. I won't say I'm blameless, but that doesn't excuse your affair.
Realizing she couldn't deny it anymore, Nancy started crying and was scolded by the nurse for causing a scene in the hospital. I truly had no idea. I never suspected my daughter-in-law was meeting another man while leaving the kids with me. I had unwittingly been complicit in her affair. Her affair partner was a high school classmate she reconnected with at a reunion. He worked as a bar manager, allowing them to meet during the day at hotels. Nancy's own mother called her a shameless daughter who cheated, lost her kids, and got divorced, and refused to let her return home. She now works and lives at a job with dormitory accommodations. After the divorce, my son and the grandkids moved in with us. Understandably, my son was down for a while. Pull yourself together. You have 2 daughters to raise. With my urging, he managed to stay positive. Young Cindy missed her mom and went to visit her, but Mary never expressed a desire to see her. Over time, even Cindy's visits became less frequent, and she stopped mentioning her mom. My son told me about the last visit he took Cindy to.
It seems like she's found a new guy. Probably a no good one. She was really thin and had a bruise on her face. It's hard to watch someone you once loved and married, who bore your children, fall apart.
He was visibly upset.
She's not a kid. You don't have to carry her burdens too, Dad.
At some point, Mary had started calling him Dad instead of Daddy, and spoke with a maturity that surprised me. 5 years have passed since the divorce. Mary is now 14, and Cindy is 12.
It might not be right to say this, but I'm glad Dad and Mom got divorced. Living here with this family feels like my real home.
Mary talks a lot more now and clearly expresses her feelings. People with developmental disabilities often lack imagination and struggle to read social cues. Without imagination, they can't visualize when reading, making novels tough to enjoy.
Thanks to Grandma letting me read lots of comics. Comics match expressions with dialogue, and they explain everything clearly.
She laughed. Living with us, I was amazed at how intelligent Mary was. Great memory is common among those with autistic traits. Being smart and good at studying, but struggling to understand people can lead to misunderstandings.
My Mary could become a doctor or lawyer one day.
My husband would say, but Mary responded, I want to be a cartoonist. Do you think I can? You're an excellent artist, so you might. I'd be thrilled if my granddaughter became a cartoonist. Searching for famous people with developmental disabilities brings up an impressive list. Of course, they didn't succeed just because of their disabilities. Their efforts and support from others were crucial. Still, seeing successful individuals might reduce prejudice and discrimination.
I wish everyone came with an instruction manual.
Mary made a good point about everyone having an instruction manual. Whether someone has a developmental disability or not, everyone has strengths and weaknesses, and some people get along better than others. If we knew these things in advance, many people would have an easier time. Recently, Mary drew a picture of our family. It was so wonderful that I bought a frame and hung it in the living room. Mary was shy, but clearly happy.
She might become a painter.
My husband said with folded arms, making me laugh. He's quite the doting grandparent. And so am I. We don't know what the future holds for our granddaughters, but we want to support them in every way we